everybody, John Ramdeen and Robin Black with you here in our downtown studios. UFC 209 offering up some interesting preliminary fights. Orlando Vannata taking on David Teymur, and the former light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans back in action. Last time he was inside of the cage was April of 2016, taking on Dan Kelly, who's on a roll right now, winner of 3 straight. We were supposed to see Rashad in Toronto, and then they talked about him. It was supposed to be in New York, then Toronto. The guy didn't get cleared. What do you expect to see from the former light heavyweight champion in this fight?
That's a real good question. You know, we don't know. One thing we do know about Rashad is he's been studying fighting from a third-person perspective, and we've seen from Woodley, we've seen from Bisping, we've seen from Cruz, and many others how much that's helped these guys understand the big picture of fighting. It's also helped them be a little more comfortable. Even Bisping's a little mellower when he fights now. So we might see a smart Rashad. I think that would be a really good thing. This sort of, when these guys go in sometimes with this, oh, I got to win, I got to prove it, I got to do everything, I got to overperform. That's hard, even on the best guys. Rashad just has to go out there and do what he does, which is compete in mixed martial arts. Fight. Rashad knows how to fight. That's what he just needs to do. Fight at his best. Dan Kelly's super deceptive. You think you know what he is. You think you've got him figured out. He feels way more basic than he actually is. He's super deceptive. And if he gets an underhook on you or he gets a hold of your body, you're in a lot of trouble. That guy's understanding of how to control you in space when he has a grip on you is pretty spectacular, even against a wrestler like Rashad. This is a fantastic fight for everybody involved, because if Rashad Evans doesn't beat Dan Kelly, who is far better than all of the people who kind of just marginally know who he is, believe he is, then we know where we're at. And for Dan Kelly, even getting up later into his 30s, is like, you know what? I just beat Rashad. I got 3 years left in me. Let me actually take a run at this thing at the top. So it's a great fight for everybody involved.
Do you believe that Rashad Evans has a specific path to victory? One of the things that has been a big bonus for Rashad is the fact that he's faster than everybody. He's improved, not from going from a traditional wrestler into a complete MMA fighter. But why not use your hands? Get in, do some damage, get back out, and when you have your guy defending, then look to take out his legs.
I think that's what we would. I think that's what the just initial view of this fight. All right, Rashad, we're gonna get our hands going in this fight. And Dan Kelly better be ready for that eventuality, and he better be willing to engage in it, because if he gets any type of panic to trying to get in on that body lock, he's going to put himself in a compromised position. So he's going to have to accept the reality that he's going to be standing in there doing some boxing with Rashad Evans, and that's going to be really fun.
Orlando Vannata, we saw him in his UFC debut, looked spectacular, even though it was a losing effort against Tony Ferguson. We called his fights in Japan. Why should people tune in to watch this guy?
In this fight, he's fighting a very high-level Muay Thai fighter, and so we're imagining he's flowing out there. Lando's spinning and super fluid and just improvising some things. Lando's going to get a hold of this guy's body. Remember some of those fights, his early fights, including Japan? Flowing doesn't just mean between kicks and punches and kicks, between his ability to grapple with you, manipulate your body, take you off your feet. He does all of that, and we're going to see that in this fight. We're going to see Orlando Vannata, who is going to strike from the outside, and as soon as your hands engage, he's going to get your body and try to get it to your back or lace your leg or something. We're going to see that aspect of Groovy Lando.
But wouldn't he want to do his last fight taking on the traditional MMA fighter in John McDessie, who has that karate background, that taekwondo background? And what did we see? We saw Orlando Vannata with that spinning kick.
Beat him with his own game.
Wouldn't he want to do that again in this fight with Teymur?
Yeah. And wouldn't you figure that's what he'll do?
Yeah.
So then don't do that.
Down. Yeah.
Then don't do that, right? Right. If this guy's so sure after seeing me fight this karate taekwondo traditional guy that I fought him that way, then he's going to expect that from me. It's a perfect time to flip it.
Is it an important thing to go out there and constantly look spectacular when you look at this 155-pound division and how deep it is? Everybody, if you're in this game, if you're in the UFC, clearly you're here to make the most money possible. If you go out, have 3 fights in the UFC and people are talking about you, again, you'll leapfrog a whole bunch of people. But is that extra pressure? It's already a terrifying scenario being inside of the UFC's octagon. Yeah,
so Lando, we've spoken to him a number of times, and he's a pretty mellow dude, you know, he's kind of whatever, he's just kind of hanging out, which is pretty cool. And he fights like that. So he's going to take it as it comes. I don't know that there's much of a plan, and I don't mean that in any kind of way to suggest that.
He trains for everything.
Yeah, he goes out and he free fights. And there's something fascinating about that philosophy these days. If Marcelo Garcia talks about if you train for him, you've now entered his game, and he's better at it. You know what I mean? If you train for Frankie Edgar, you've now entered Frankie Edgar's game, and he's better at it. If you train to just fight and color outside the lines and find the spaces between the movements, you are now making him play something he's less familiar with. And I think Vannata will go out there free. David Teymur is a little more structured as a specialist, a Muay Thai specialist. And you start playing that game with him, and all of a sudden, you're on the end of that highlight reel. So it's going to be that's a really great fight.
A number of excellent fights going down at the T-Mobile Arena at UFC 209. It happens this Saturday night, and you can catch it on pay-per-view.